So let's start talking about how these different trends are beginning to drive different behaviours in people who have the skills that we need, and talk a little bit more about what that might mean. There's a reason why I've got a picture of cars on the screen, and that's really to make the following point. Talent, more and more, for the reasons that I've outlined previously, where we have this collision of a number of trends really giving those people with the skills that we need more power in the marketplace, and those people themselves are much more in control of their career, they are beginning to act like consumers, career consumers, and in fact exhibiting many of the same behaviours that we exhibit as consumers. And I use the car example because if you take something like buying a car, many of the same things are true. So when we go out to buy a car, we have a broad idea of what we're looking for. We don't go out randomly looking at cars in the hope that we'll suddenly stumble across one that meets our needs. We have a sense of what we need. We need a family car, or we want a performance car, whatever it is that's driving the need. And you know what? Talent's exactly the same. And becoming more and more informed, more and more aware of why they go to work, the relationship they want with an employer, and what they want to get out of it. Brand is important. It's important if we're buying a car. It's more important to some of us than others. But we will often sit there and say, well, I'd really like a particular type of car because I like the image, I like the brand, and maybe we'll be looking at 2 or 3 different types of car within the same brand level. And actually, having got to a particular brand level, we will be reticent to leave it behind and move to what we might see as a lower brand. Well, guess what? Talents thinks the same way. They are looking to get good brands in terms of employers onto their CV. They're looking to increase their personal brand equity through association. But they're also looking to develop a plurality of experiences that really gives them something that they can sell. They have buying power in the same way that we have buying power. We don't have to buy a car from a particular manufacturer or from a particular franchise or dealer. It's about the deal. Can we get what we want? Ultimately, it's our money. We're in control. We're not forced to do anything we don't want to do. And more, that's the same with talent. People who have hard-to-find skills or skills which are very much in demand know. It's not a surprise to them. They know. And so they are in a situation where they can be a bit pickier. They can demand a little bit more of us. They can shop around a little bit more because they want a good deal in the same way that you or I want a good deal. We'd love to be able to get more car for our money. Well, actually, we'd love to be able to get more job, more experience, more development, more cash, more benefits, something that suits our way of working much better, location, whatever it is. So we see these kind of behaviours in the talent world as well. And again, if I'm buying a car, I want to be able to tailor it to my needs. I want to be able to pick from a number of options to assemble something that's just right for me. Well, this is also something we see in the world of talent. We react to this quite well in some ways. Flexible benefit schemes, for example, are a really nice way of enabling people to, from a catalogue, if you like, pull together something that works for them. But I think we're going to see more and more of this going forwards. And ultimately, there is a feeling of, you need more, you need me, more than I need you. That's a very harsh thing to say, but I think it's lurking there under the surface. And I use that phrase deliberately because I think it's not so much that potential employees are saying that, they might be thinking that. I think it's more that employers may be still stuck in the old model of, you're lucky to have a job, or actually we'll assume you stay because you're very lucky and fortunate to be able to work for such a great company. I think I'd like to challenge this assumption, and I'd like you to challenge this assumption. Because ultimately, just as I can buy a similar car down the road or in another town, just as I can move from one brand to another in the same kind of product area, I can go elsewhere. And guess what? I can do that as talent now as well. I can do that as an employee because actually the barriers to me moving organisation are lower. There are going to be fewer people out there judging me on the fact that I've left after 2 or 3 years, because actually now that doesn't matter as much as it maybe did 10 years ago. And I think also as a prospective employee, I can shop around. I can hold 2 or 3 offers down simultaneously. I can be picky. I can ask somebody to wait while I hear from another person. And we do begin to see these behaviours. And I can change allegiance. My brand loyalty is highly dependent on the moment. This is something we're seeing quite strongly, is a sense of employee loyalty is changing from I'm loyal to you because I've worked for you so long, to I'm loyal to you as long as it works for both of us. So hopefully this has given you an idea that actually there is beginning to be a real blurring of the lines between the way that we think about the consumers of our products and services and the way in which we should be thinking about employees and potential employees, because they're exhibiting the same behaviours. And so I'd very much make the case that talent itself are now career consumers, and we should be beginning to treat them in the same way that we treat the consumers of our products and services. And this is the thing. We know how to do this just down the hall in marketing. We know how to do this in terms of our consumers of our products and services. So how do we get that kind of thinking into the way that we work with employees and potential employees? So if we buy into the notion that actually talent is exhibiting the same behaviours as the consumers of our products and services, then we should be able to say that some of the way we deal with those customers, those consumers, should be able to translate and read across to the way that we work with talent. If we look at some principles that come out of the consumer world, that we start with strategy, we segment the needs of our consumers. We identify who they are. We segment them into convenient buckets. And we create a proposition for them, a consumer proposition that talks to that particular group of people in a way that enables our strategy. We then put in place a route to market, a channel, and a platform where we can talk to them, deal with them, engage them around the products and services that we offer. Below that, we have the brand activity. We have the people beavering away, creating the products and services and the detail and the experience and the value that the consumers ultimately want to get. And we close this off in a nice loop with some nice feedback and metrics to know that we're doing the right things and to understand the impact that we're having. How do we enable that? Typically, we see 4 or so areas. Some of it is about insight. Insights about our consumers, insights about the market. We also need to develop the products and services that we need to sell. That can take time sometimes. We need to develop the channels and the platforms, whether they are e-commerce platforms, whether they are telephony, whether they are whatever they are, advertising, whether they are through franchisees, whatever. And we need a brand and marketing strategy. Now, if we're in the world of product and service consumers, and this was a marketing audience, you'd all be nodding and going, well, you're telling me how to do my job. But actually, I would argue that we need to apply very similar principles in the talent space, because we have an audience. We need to understand what that audience wants. We need to be able to segment them, because they do want slightly different things depending on the sector, depending on geography, depending on the evolution of the talent market. We do need to create a proposition. We often call this employer value proposition without really knowing what that means. We need to engage them in a discussion about what they get from us and what we expect from them. The deal, as we're often calling it. We need to be able to talk to them and engage them in the way that they work with. We do see this tentative approach to social media in HR in general. Well, if our consumers of the careers that we offer are using these tools every day, we do need to engage with them. We do need to have a presence on them. We do need to play those games with them. And then we need to put in place all the work that sits underneath this in creating and delivering that brand, because what we already know is one of the biggest faux pas that we can commit is promising one thing and then under-delivering. That's a sure way of getting people to leave an organisation. And we need to put in place the right feedback and metrics. We often measure the wrong things. Yeah? We should be beginning to look at a different set of metrics in this respect. And when we say insight now, we don't mean consumer and market insights so much as we need talent insights. We need to understand the people that we're dealing with. We need to understand where they are in the market. We need to understand what it is they want. We can't just get that by waiting till they come into our organisations and tell us, or waiting till they leave our organisations and telling us in an exit interview. We need to put in place the product and service offer. We need to think about our reward processes, our development processes, our talent processes, our management processes, our policies, our practices, and make sure that that is continually evolved and iterated and improved to be able to offer the deal that our consumers want. And we need a brand and marketing strategy. We need to work out how are we going to attract these people? How are we going to talk to them? How are we going to engage them? Because particularly in the digital space, what we already see is some really quite big digital names struggling to get the talent they need. So if you're a manufacturing business that perhaps doesn't have a big name or that doesn't appear in one of the sectors which might be immediately attractive to these kind of people, how do you know they're going to work for you? How do you know they're even going to want to work for you? How do you know if they've even heard of you? So I think this is a big dilemma for a lot of organisations who particularly are focused on digital talent, because I think there's an awful lot of strategies out there are going to be very much let down by an inability to think about these kind of principles. And here's the question. There's a group of people down the hall who think like this because they market our products and services. Do we have this kind of marketing mindset in HR? Well, I think that's a good question to ponder over, because if we really challenge many of our talent models, we'll see that they are founded on quite outmoded principles. And I'm going to talk about what some of those principles are in the next area. But I really want us to dwell on this. Should we be thinking much more like our marketing colleagues? And what does that mean? What does that mean for HR?